I love you. This is not about me not wanting to spend time with you. This is about me wanting to be the best version of me. Hello, it's Jen. Welcome back. Today we're talking solo travel. And not just like a girlfriend's trip, not like a trip that's sort of solo, but traveling completely by yourself. It's something that I've been doing for a few years now. I absolutely love it. I think it will change your life. It has certainly changed mine, and I'm really glad that you're here. So first of all, I asked on Instagram, it was a very specific question. If you travel as a solo traveler, why? And your answers sort of blew my socks off. First of all, if you're not following me on Instagram, I wish you would. It's just Jen LaForge, same as I am on everything. But your answers pretty much all boiled down to a couple of different reasons. I will read some of the responses to you, but it was mostly to do with freedom and freedom. And it kind of led me philosophically down this path that I have been on for the last several weeks. I have read a bunch of studies about solo travel, about the travel industry, really courting female solo travelers in particular, although we are seeing a lot of guys travel solo as well. And it really is an interesting phenomena in our current culture where people that have the means, and it actually can be done very economically, solo travel, so it's not something that is just for rich people, are finding so much benefit in traveling alone. So we need to start on a very 5,000 foot level. And that is with this very simple statement. At some point in our lives, we are all going to be alone. Now, I realize for some of you that feels a little ouchy, a little scary, but just hear me out. You're going to be alone for a short period or a long period. We all know the statistics on men not living as long as women. I already have several friends whose husbands have sadly passed at the ripe old age of 53. Maybe it's because of a divorce. Children grow up and leave us. There are a variety of different reasons, some of them negative, some of them not negative at all, where we will find ourselves in our own company. And I think in a day and age where we are kind of can be not alone all the time, we can be on social media, we can be surrounded by online friends any time of the day or night, we have all kind of lost the ability, not only the ability to be alone comfortably, but we have lost the joy in being alone. And the truth is, if you are not already your own best friend, when you get to one of these inevitable points of life where you are alone, you won't know what to do if you haven't practiced. So think about it as having a best friend that at some point in your life you're going to be with for an extended period of time. And throughout the years, you just kind of ignored them. You didn't get to know them. You didn't learn what they like. You didn't figure out their style or their preferences. And then all of a sudden you turned and realized that this best friend was the only person you had in the world, and you hadn't really nurtured a good relationship. That might be challenging moving forward. That's how I view my alone time. I am getting to know my own best friend, which is myself. What is she like? What are her preferences? How does she want to spend her time? What are her hobbies? And way back when I first started even blogging, before I ever had a YouTube channel, I had read a statistic that the suicide rate had gone higher statistically for women between 45 and 55 than any other demographic. And it really hit me in my heart, and I thought, why is that? And I honestly think a lot of it is, as women especially, we're so focused on career, we're so focused on our kids, we're so focused on the needs of everybody else that we don't even know ourselves anymore. We don't know what we like. We don't know how we want to spend our time. And then when the kids grow and leave, or maybe we retire from our jobs, or maybe has been true for a lot of my friends of late, we get demoted in our positions, or we're maybe like taking a back seat, which is ageism and shouldn't happen, but it does happen nonetheless. And we find ourselves a little adrift. And we want to make sure that that relationship we have with ourselves is one that we approach with time and intentionality. So my first solo trip, and forgive me if you've heard me tell this story, but I love telling it, was way back when my oldest was 6 and my twins were 3. I was at wit's end, as they say. I was losing my mind. I had no space for myself. I had no time for myself. And actually, it was my husband, Scott, who suggested that I go away for just one night to the Four Seasons Las Colinas. I will never forget it. And I spent a delicious 24 hours in my own company. I ordered room service, I ate in the restaurant, I laid by the pool, and it opened up something to me that I have now come to feel is mandatory for my own care and feeding. Now, does your trip alone have to be somewhere dramatic like the Four Seasons? Absolutely not. It could be at a very budget-friendly locale. It could even be at a campsite or something along those lines. I have a dear friend that just spent a weekend by herself in an Airstream, which just seemed amazing to me. The point of the time, at least it was for me back then and is for me still, was to remember who I am, to reconnect with myself, with my story, with what I love, with how I want to spend my time, to order food that I wanted, to drink wine that I wanted, to eat where I wanted, when I wanted, to do everything or nothing, just that freedom of time. So before I tell you about my last solo trip, I want to read a few of these responses because they really are in line with what I just told you. So I can do whatever and remember the question was, if you travel solo, why? So I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. I find it peaceful being on my own and making my own decisions. I'm always worried about if others are having fun. Solo, I get to do what I want, when I want. Now, the argument could be made that we all need to do a better job of asking for what we want in our real life, right? We're not great at that. And so we do feel put upon quite a bit when maybe we don't need to. But if solo travel is the way that you found to carve out just a little bit of time that's all for you, I think it is such a fabulous idea. So I just got back from a lovely 5 days at Walt Disney World completely by myself. And honestly, it had been a minute since I had done a totally solo trip. As I've developed more friends who travel, more friends that are also vloggers and YouTubers, I always seem to be able to have somebody to travel with. But for this trip, I really wanted to just spend time with myself. I even had friends that were down there at the same time. And friends, I hope you'll forgive me, but I didn't tell anyone I was there. I needed the freedom of choice just for me. And I have heard from a few of you that it makes you anxious to think about traveling alone, things like eating in restaurants, safety. I actually did a whole video about that. I think it was last year that I will put a card with a link to it right here. I'll also put it in the first comment of this video so it's easy for you to find, where I really talk through a lot of the practicalities of it. But one of the things I mentioned in that video is why I love things like Walt Disney World or a cruise for solo travel, because everything is so convenient and you never feel weird or odd. Although, truth be told, I have now traveled solo literally all over the world and I have never felt odd. I have eaten at very high-end restaurants by myself, not at the bar. I've sat at a table. I have honestly never had a bad experience. And I think that there's this perception that people are going to judge you or wonder why you're eating by yourself. They don't. There's a lot going on in the world now that means that a woman could be traveling by herself. And as long as you're being safe, there really has never been a time where I either if I felt uncomfortable, I felt like I couldn't get out of the situation. You have to be savvy. I do mention some safety tips in that other video, but you really just want to follow the same rules of personal safety that you follow no matter where you go. But while I was at Walt Disney World, I stayed at the Riviera Resort. We had some timeshare points that we couldn't use as a family, so I decided, well, you know what? I'm just going to use them myself. I was able to swim in the pool. I floated in the pool quite a bit. Floating is one of my favorite things. I just absolutely love it. And quite frankly, I'm very good at it. So, I could float in the pool. I could get up when I wanted. I could go to bed when I wanted. I could go back to the room and take a nap or stay out in theme parks all day. I love Walt Disney World for this because everything is just so convenient. Transportation is all sorted. You don't have to worry about if you've had a glass of wine, getting back safely to your room. Security is very good. It is a very, very safe place to vacation alone. I feel the same thing about cruising. The kind of bummer with both cruising and Walt Disney World, and really any high-end hotel, obviously, you're paying for double occupancy, even though you're in the room by yourself. I just got over that. I try to find the best deal that I can. I can only afford to do it maybe once, maybe twice a year, but it's definitely something that I figured out how to fit into the budget. But for those reasons, I really do like an all-inclusive resort or something very organized. Now, if you're a little bit more advanced in your solo travel, you might want to do a big city. I think New York is great. Paris is great. Chicago is great for solo travelers. Any place where there's plenty to do or nothing to do, you just want to really choose your location of your hotel, that it's in a very safe area, and also that there's good amenities right there within the hotel. When I travel solo, I love being able to have a restaurant right there. In this case, I was able to go to Topolino's, and there was a great counter service, and there's the Bar Riva. And then, of course, I had plenty of transportation to get me to all different kinds of dining opportunities. So I didn't really have to think much. So, I mean, that's what I enjoy doing. One thing I will say, if Walt Disney World is a place where you have been a lot with your children, I would try to book at a place that is not where you have a lot of memories with your kids. It's one of the reasons I love the Riviera. We actually never stayed there as a family because it wasn't built when my kids were little. So I don't have that same association, and I don't get super sentimental, because for sure that does happen. But I love to push past that and still just have, such a fabulous time on my own. Okay, let's read a couple more of your responses. Y'all, these were fun, and some of y'all were absolutely hysterical. Same thing. Jenny said, I'm always worried about if others are having fun. I already read that one. I like this, to go with my own flow. And that one was actually from a guy. So I don't mean to be talking only about women. I know plenty of men that love traveling alone. By the way, my husband loves traveling alone, so it's not a bad thing. I love this one. So my mind can rest. I make all the decisions for family and work and have no time for me. Oh my gosh, how I resonate with that. When you are the chief cook and bottle washer in your home, in your work, with your family, to not have to make decisions for someone else is such an amazing outlet. Oh my gosh, love that so much. I can think about what I want, not what would make everyone else happy. Are you starting to sense a theme here? I think we all care way too much about if everybody else is having a good time. To take time for myself. As a single mom, I barely get time to fill my own bucket. The big thing with all of these responses is the women who travel alone, and the men as well, realize the actual benefit to the people in their lives by them getting some downtime where they can be completely selfish and not worry about anybody else. It is a particular kind of filling up your own cup that is very challenging to describe unless you've done it. All right, I'm going to read a couple more, and then there's some few points that I want to make. Cheaper, which is a great point, much cheaper to travel alone, can eat whatever I want, and good old-fashioned me time. So again, we should be taking more of that time on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. We don't, so many times we have to get away in order to make that happen. Now, if you are getting pushback, because a few of you had DM'd me, I really want to do this, but my significant other is weird about it or whatever, maybe you want to show them this video and you want to say, listen, I love you. This is not about me not wanting to spend time with you. This is about me wanting to be the best version of me. I think when women first started traveling alone, the perception was, by the way, the statistic is it's up 85%. 85%. So that's a big jump in women that are traveling alone. It used to be because they were single or they were retired, or maybe they retired before their husband, or for whatever reason, their partners or friends couldn't travel with them. Now more and more we're seeing women choose to travel completely solo. And I think it's this 24/7 world that we live in, that in order to really think in a straight line, as my mother-in-law used to say, and really think through it. It's not just about having fun and being indulgent. It is about that. But for me personally, it's also about journaling and like shutting down all of the noise of other people's expectations, all of the noise of other people's needs, all of the daily demands of home and dogs and work. And I have done some journaling when I have done these solo trips that I can't even tell you the value it has had for me. Now, as a travel vlogger, I travel a lot alone, but it's for work. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a trip where there is no work involved and it is just about you spending time with you. And I'm telling you, it is just a beautiful thing. Oh, I love this one. I can do what I want when I want. Sleep late, eat five snacks, stay for fireworks, etc. I am such a huge fan when I travel by myself of the snacky dinner, as my kids used to call it. Either sitting down and eating a nice meal, or an alternative to that is not making a reservation for dinner at all and just literally eating what you want when you want. It's funny how that feels so indulgent. Now, for me, in a place like Walt Disney World, or say if I'm traveling my trip to Paris, things like that, museums are huge for me, and anytime I can just linger and take my time. I'm going to just say, this is much more a me thing than it is an other people thing. But whenever I'm thoroughly enjoying something, and sometimes I get like in a zone, let's use a museum for an example, and I want to stay there for a very long time. But if I'm with someone else, even if it's a girlfriend that I love deeply, even if it's my husband, I have this internal sense of, am I inconveniencing this other person because I want to spend this extended amount of time doing this thing? Whatever it is. Maybe for you it's shopping, maybe it's listening to live music, maybe it's Broadway shows. And when you travel alone, there is just none of that. So again, getting back to identifying who you really are and what you really want. Okay, I'm going to read a couple more. Christine said, because I need peace. Amen and amen. Because I need peace. Now, back in the day, women would go to like spas and things to do the same thing. Now I think more and more we are going to big cities. We're going on cruises. We're going to places like Disneyland or Walt Disney World. The location doesn't really matter as long as it's a location that you enjoy. I thought, because Scott mentioned, have you ever thought of going to like, what's that big spa, the Marival Spa or something like that? Here's why I don't love that. I love me a good spa, but I like going to a place where I have the option to do everything or do nothing. So that's why I choose predominantly to go to either a big city or a tourist destination and then stay at a really, really nice property that has a spa, that has a beautiful pool, that has all of that like spa-like stuff available to me. But also in the case of Walt Disney World, I can hop on the Skyliner and go over to Hollywood Studios or go to Epcot or go to the Magic Kingdom and do all of the things. This last trip, okay, this is really funny. I went to Magic Kingdom. I needed to renew my annual pass. I walked in, I renewed my annual pass, I got popcorn, I did a loop, so down Main Street and around. I rode nothing, and then I went back to my hotel. You want to talk about feeling indulgent? That was, and I was just people watching and taking my time and stopping and looking at things. It was the most glorious couple of hours I have ever spent in the Magic Kingdom, and I did not ride a gosh darn ride. I just ate my popcorn and looked around at all the pretty things. I realize I'm becoming my grandmother. Don't care. It makes me happy. It brings me joy, and it was just such a fabulous time. Now, here's what I want to say. Are you going to get lonely? Because that's the number one thing that people will DM me. And as a response to all of these over 200 responses from women that were very enthusiastic, and men, about solo travel, a lot of you DM'd me, don't you get lonely? You do at times, but I really think, especially when you're new to solo travel, that is part of the process. Getting used to being a little lonely. And you have to kind of fight past that a little bit. You kind of have to fight past the discomfort of eating alone at something like, oh, I don't know, a character dining opportunity, which is what I did. And oh my gosh, I had the best time with Daisy and Minnie, and I think Donald and Mickey were there, whatever. But being able to just fully enjoy that without being stressed about anybody else was, I just had a ball. I'm so glad I did it. I was really hesitant. That was really the first time. I'd done plenty of dining at Disney by myself, but that was the first time I had done like an actual character meal. So great. Servers were so great. The characters were so great. I had the best character interactions I think I've ever had because they weren't interacting with anybody else but little old me either. And we just had a ball. Daisy and I always have such great conversations. She's just the best. I mean, I love Minnie too, but you know. So do I get lonely? Yes. But it's a moment, and I know that it's going to pass. And of course, I talk to my husband on the phone. I'm not like a monk going off on a silent retreat. Although, if that's what you need, that's what you should do. Silent retreats can be amazing. But it's more just the fact that we're being respectful of ourselves, of our own needs, of what we really want. If you have been on the fence about traveling solo, I want this video to serve as your beacon, your call, your siren, if you will, to tell you it is time to book the trip. If it feels a little ambitious for you to do something like Paris or London or Walt Disney World, start small. Start small like I did. Do one night at a nice hotel in your area. One night alone. Buy a new journal. Buy a beautiful pen. Go and just enjoy your own company, maybe just for one night. And then the next time, maybe try it for 2 nights. And then maybe try it for a weekend. And I think you will find what I did, that you really can be your own best friend, and that solo travel can open up an entire world of fantastic ideas, creativity, and peace. Thank you so much for watching whatever you're doing. I hope you're finding joy. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one.